honestly, man, just keep going. You're never going to see the results if you just sit back and wish for them. You have to actively get up and do it. And even if that sucks, believe me, I would bartend and then leave and come build this bar, go to sleep for 3 hours, wake up, and come right back and do it all over again. You know, even if it's not comfortable, you got to keep doing it. You know, Charles would say the same thing, getting into fitness. I'm sure the first few times you go work out, it absolutely sucks until you get into routine of, you know, oh, this is cool. I feel better. I feel, you know, more energetic.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Modern Man. Glad to have you with us. If this is your first time joining us, please hit that subscribe button. You can get all of our episodes. Go back and watch the rest of them because we'd love for you to be caught up on all the content. Before we jump into today's subject matter, I first want to introduce our panelists. They're all cuddled up on the couch right next to me. Timothy Pecoraro, Jonathan Parker, thanks for joining us today.
They keep the bald and bearded and beautiful men
right here.
Just right
Center
here.
of gravity.
In this space.
Everybody knows.
Holding us down.
Just holding. We're the anchor.
Yeah.
You know it.
Oh, yeah.
And we got glasses too, but glasses doesn't start with B.
It doesn't.
Bifocals. That's what we're doing this in 45 years. Bald, bearded, beautiful, and bifocal.
There you go. So you can already tell we're having fun over here. I'm excited to introduce our guest today, Jeremy Krauze. Not only have we rolled together for a while, but also opening up this beautiful spot that we are, Society. Thank you so much, and I'd love to give you the floor right now to introduce yourself to our viewers. Tell us who you are, what you do, and maybe give us a glimpse of Society and what it's going to be all about.
Sweet. Well, first of all, thank you guys for being here in the space. You know, it's fun to see it all coming together. I'm Jeremy Krauze. I own a clothing company called White Rabbit Supply Company, and now recently opening an awesome sandwich bar and social club called Society. We signed this lease back in middle of October and have been quietly building it out over the winter, and then finally just announced about a month ago, Greenville Today dropped the surprise on everyone. It's been a long time coming. Been in food and bev for about 13, 14 years, which is how we kind of got introduced way back when at Gringo's once upon a time, you know, and made my way around town, done a bunch of graphic design work and marketing for different restaurants, bars here in Greenville, and also some friends down in Spartanburg with Main Street Pub, Keg and Cellar. Kind of all over the place, man. Graphic design and slinging booze.
Yeah. Well, I do want to commend you. I want to commend you on just your attention to detail. I mean, everything you touch, do, put out, and really debut, I can tell has intention, design, and thought behind it, and you don't just throw things together. So I just want to acknowledge you for that.
I appreciate that, man.
Absolutely. Jonathan, you had a question?
Yeah, so what's the vibe? So just for our viewers who are in the area, like they're watching the podcast, Ted's real particular about where we go. So when they come to Society, what should they expect?
The best sandwiches you've ever had in your life.
Hey!
No, man.
Love
Good vibes, man. We don't like pretentiousness. We're not stuffy. 2 floors, 2 bars. Everyone involved in this is pretty much a veteran of food and bev. We're the best of the best staff. Very honored to have the crew I have backing me. Business partner Scott Woods owns City Tavern right around the corner, huge staple of downtown. I've got Chris Rosensteel, has a catering company in town called the Uptown Company. He's done a bunch of great things in town. He's won a bunch of cool competitions, some that you've hosted. Oh, yeah. Got Colin Walker coming over. He's a veteran of the bar life and restaurant life in downtown as one of my managers. And then everyone's favorite giant teddy bear, Miguel Gonzalez, coming in as well. Plus a bunch of other great staff members. But core crew.
He gives the best hugs.
Yeah.
Miguel gives the best hugs.
I'm coming just for the hug.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. If you ever want to feel special, give Miguel a hug.
That's what his Wikipedia page says anyways.
I love that we're kind of talking about where we are now, Society, and the projects that you're working on, because I know kind of everything you have going on now might not have looked like this would come into fruition a few years ago, and I think specifically we were talking about 2017. Yep. Pull back the curtain a little bit. Let us know, I guess, what that ride was like, because we do want to talk about, for anybody watching, turning a bad situation into a good situation, or turning our trajectory around. For the men watching, even the women watching, there are times we might stop, survey our lives, look at where we are, and either not like where we are or not like where we're going. And sometimes we feel like we're on this nonstop train and there's no getting off and there's no changing trajectory, but that's not the case. So I'd love to get an insight on your 2017, and we can start jumping into what kind of changed that trajectory, rerouted the GPS and got us here. So fill us in.
Yeah, so 2017, hands down, had to be one of the most, when it rains, it pours, probably years for me, for sure. Just left a job, Gringos, that I, dumped a whole lot of blood, sweat, and tears, broke my back for. So that's kind of a weird, breakup, so to speak. Then that was July 2017. September 2017, one of my best friends had found, shot himself in his bathtub. We were featured in South magazine for 6 Degrees Tequila. We did this big fashion show up at WXYZ at a loft. So kind of they invited us out because we were, one of the features in the magazine. I think you're actually on the cover of that one. So we were, good night out, having a good time, celebrating, partying. At some point in the night, Nick and I got split up, and we had an event with one of the liquor reps up on the roof, and he just was kind of MIA the entire morning. So we, wouldn't answer the phone, couldn't get a hold of him. So we went to his apartment, and his door was unlocked, and happened to have found that he decided to take his life that night. And then shortly after that, 2018, truly beginning of the year, father passed away. Not even like 4 or 5 months later. I remember getting that phone call. It's like 11:45 at night. My aunt happened to be in town, and she called me and was like, "Hey, I'm so sorry to drop this on you. Your dad's got about 15 minutes to live." And I was, at District West downtown. He was out on, I think, Pelham Road, that medical facility. And so I remember jumping in the car and doing 160 miles an hour down 385 just to get to the construction to get on 85, and it was shut down. So I had to go down the next exit, get on Woodruff Road, turn around, walked in, and "Hey, sorry, you're about 5 minutes too late." Just constant blows. So not ideal, but oddly enough, looking back, and I was actually thinking about this after our phone conversation last week, and we were kind of talking about doing this. It made me think back. That's really the start of this process of, the beginning of doing this. We had done a wake for Nick at Gringos, and business partner Scott Woods. We've known of each other at that point. I don't think we ever truly met. And I remember having a conversation with him that night of, we're going to get you a bar. We're going to do this. This is 3.5 years ago. We shopped a couple different spaces. One is where Hoppin' is now, actually. That just didn't pan out and didn't feel right to us on that. And 3.5 years kind of rolled by of still shopping different buildings in and out. Fast forward, this deal for what was the diner very briefly, but more famously known for Charlie Steakhouse, kind of fell into place. I actually almost signed the deal back in March, a week before COVID shut everything down. I was about 96% on the way of doing the deal, and then everything came to a halt.
Screeching halt.
Yeah. And that was actually with a different set of partners initially. And for whatever reason, Scott and I hit it off during quarantine. We'd sit on the phone for an hour and just shoot the shit. And fast forward to October, this deal kind of came back to life when the governor had lifted, I think we were at 25% capacity maybe at the time, or 50. No, I think we were at 50, and they lifted it back to 100. And I was like, I can work with that. That's a business plan I can work with. And it fell right in place. Was chatting with Scott in the City Tavern, and then I think this deal literally from that conversation we had fell into place in 48 hours. It was like, "Oh, you want to do this? All right, cool, let's do this." And the landlord's like, "Let's go, sign right now." And we're like, "Yeah, okay, this makes sense," which was also kind of horrifying at the time because then November, December, it's like record-breaking cases of COVID, record-breaking cases of COVID. We're like, "Oh, damn." Couldn't plan a better time to get this rolling. Yeah. And we didn't plan it. It literally just kind of, trucking along. You get the nice weather, 2 a.m.'s back, and of course we had the full capacity, and it's just kind of come together. We're super stoked, and it's one of those things. Looking back, couldn't be more thrilled to have not gotten my way 3.5 years ago, because I wouldn't have known Chris Rosensteel at the time. And talk about such a disgusting talent to have on the team. He's I originally just hit him up for like consulting back in March, and he's like, well, how do I be a part of this? And I was like, well, that was my second question. I just wasn't sure if that was something you'd be interested in. And dude, it all came together. I'd say it's come together slowly and surely, but that's not true. It's very fast and chaotic, and I love it, and I'm here for it.
Well, I think you've done a lot of years of foundation to come up for that quick growth. Going back to 2017, 2018, what in the moment, after the news of your friend, after the news of your dad, whether it's a week later, a couple days later, what gets you out of bed and keeps you going, man?
My dad was probably the hardest working man to ever grace the earth. So I would feel like I was doing him a disservice if I didn't get my ass up and get going. When he or his older siblings were just children, my grandmother was pregnant with him. She, very German, last name being Krauze, but also half Jewish, actually. And she was held captive in a concentration camp, and she was on a firing squad, and for whatever reason, a soldier happened to pull her off, and later that day, they gassed her while being pregnant with my father. She survived it, and the next day, they gassed her again and survived that. Managed to survive and escape the concentration camp, come to America with my dad and his brother and sister, and I mean, they grew up dumpster diving for food. He worked and paid for his entire college education, eventually got hired on with NASA and started working with them, and advanced so far, like, we can't promote you anymore unless you go get a master's degree. He's like, okay, cool. And he worked and went to school and got that, and we can't, promote you unless you go get the next degree. He's like, okay, cool. And he went and did that, and, that was a dude that was never going to see a day of his children not knowing where the next meal was coming from, or if there's going to be a roof over our heads. And I think that's one thing that probably stuck with me and resonated the most with me is his ability to get up and go get it. And I think like anything in life, you have the option of letting bad or whatever keep you. It's silly to me that when people, I guess, want to complain about, oh man, my life sucks. Cool, what are you doing about it to change that then? Because this life's yours. What sucks? What can you physically go change? And if you can, why aren't you doing it? And if you can't, why aren't you trying to figure out what it is that turns that into, I can change this, in my mind. So, I guess just truly my dad, his upbringing, that was kind of, I can sit by and complain that life's not fair and life sucks, or keep moving forward, And I think that's also, for me, a good way to keep distracted was to keep busy,
Did you know your grandmother?
Yep. She passed when I was probably about 5, so not super well.
Right, but you got to meet her.
Yep, up in York, Pennsylvania. Crazy, man. Like,
Yeah,
what are the chances of, that?
You talk about being anointed for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Being able to survive all that. Wow.
It's wild.
That's crazy.
I thought of a hashtag, those Krauzes are crazy. Hashtag crazy.
All with a K, though.
All of the K.
Hashtag crazy Krauzes. No, that's amazing because, shout out to your grandmother, your dad for setting that example, and also shout out to you for following those steps, because we could lead a horse to water, we can't make them drink, we can set the example for those to follow us, but we can't walk that path for them. So I do want to make sure that you get the credit for continuing to follow that path and walk forward. Because a lot of what we talk about is that personal responsibility. Life's going to happen, life's going to punch us in the face. I think 2020 and this pandemic has shown us a lot of the uncertainties that surround us.
Sure.
And when those uncertainties come, I think it's so important for us to analyze ourselves, analyze the situation, discern what we can control, what we can't, and start getting a move on. And I'd love to bring Tim, because you say something about pressure being our privilege, and the essence of a seed. What do you say? If you plant corn, you get corn. And I think a lot of us need to realize the greatness that's within us. And when we get planted, that's how it comes out. So I'd love for you to touch on that a little bit, because sometimes when we're in the dark and we're buried, that's the exact scenario a plant has to go through before it becomes great.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm on this kick right now where, and pressure is the privilege, and it's true because the seed holds the essence, but you have to put it in the spot in order for it to actually experience the necessary change to get what's in it. Yeah. And it's to be squeezed, we want orange juice, you squeeze the orange. You want grape. That's what you have to say, is that juice worth the squeeze, right? Yeah. So that's the other thing is like when you're squeezed, what comes out of you? And that's what people are wanting to know. And so let's just look at COVID really quick. People were looking at COVID as 19 and like what you said, hey, we signed this lease, yay. And then, the numbers are going, but it was interesting that you also though, in the same breath before that was, 3 years ago, that relationship was informed, right? That prior relationship, but then it happened. And people overlook the importance of timing and having that timing, right? Because, and all the things that you went through was pressure being your privilege. All of that time to get you to the point where you signed without certainty, because you still signed in the midst of a pandemic, it just looked better. No. And people are treating COVID like it's a problem to solve, but it's actually a fact of life. Mm-hmm. And it's a fact of life that does one of my favorite things, which is adversity comes into our lives to reveal who we truly are and not who we say we are. So this is who we get to discover that we are in the midst of these types of times, because the true essence, the real Jeremy Krauze shows up when? Right. Not when there's no COVID, everything gets to be 100%, all the renovations are working well. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not you. The real you shows up when you find your friend in the bathtub. As tragic as that is. And your father, those are things that hurt my heart, But that's when you find out who you are and not who you say you are. That's like, let me tell you about me. I can look at this camera and tell you all about me and give you my reputation. But you'll really see my reputation when you're around me, you spend time with me, you talk to the people that are connected to me, and then you get to determine that. So we spend too much time trying to present things, and we do it mostly through what can I fix? When reality needs to be, this is who I really am, and it's with the fact of life, and it's a problem that's not meant for me to solve. Right. There's a big difference there.
Yeah, and I recognize that in a lot of, the team I've already got going into this is truly, not being biased, some of the hardest working people. COVID happened, it happened to everyone. That was not just circumstantial to
picking on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
like you.
Yeah. And it's watching how Chris adapted with Uptown Company, or Scott adapted with City Tavern, and even myself, and the endeavors I've worked with throughout the year. I stayed. I was doing things I never did before, as far as work to make money, to make sure ends were meeting. I was working.
You were doing
nonstop.
what your dad taught you.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Yeah. And it's cool to close out the year and open this year on a really sweet note, because truthfully, what's the 12th? Something like that.
How much did complaining help you do this?
Nothing. We're almost a year out from the initial shutdown. That was the 18th. I remember, food and bev specifically, a lot of different things got shut down. But I remember it was the 16th or 17th. We're like, oh yeah, the whole state, or I guess the country truly, is shut down tomorrow. And all of us just what?
Yeah.
That was literally the end of the world was the next day.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Your income's gone.
Oh. Yeah, my wife lost 16 events. My wife's chef, personal caterer, and she lost 16 events.
Say Chris would tell you the same story. It's horrifying.
And people treated it as oh, well, you're doing this for safety reasons. I'm like, I'm not dinging that at all.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing that point. This is just part of how we provide for our three boys.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we would, I think rightfully so, be angry, be sad, be fearful, but oh, don't worry about it. It's fine. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Your company bought you a new MacBook, whatever, and sent you home with all of this. Do we keep paying the kitchen fees?
Do we keep the MacBook we have? Or
do I sell
it?
this? I lost speaking gigs. It was just, so, yeah, I think on one of the earliest podcasts we had for Modern Man, Charles would say, COVID's the excuse most people have been waiting for. Like, they've been waiting to be lazy. They've been, right? That's what he said, right? Did I quote you right?
Charles, just so you know,
Yep.
Charles is
Charles over
off
there.
camera.
Charles is making sure that we're doing this right. Like, some people said, like, they wanted to be lazy. They wanted to stay home and binge watch Netflix. They didn't want to have to pivot. They didn't want to have to adapt. They didn't want to have to change. And we're coming up on a year, and look at you. You got a restaurant, right?
Yeah, that's cool. And, it's truthfully, again, going into 2021, it's nice to kind of have that, like, bloom of new life. I think even just the reception we've gotten on this project from when Greenville Today did the initial announcement of it, everyone's just so stoked on something new in general, because there was a minute of just gloom and doom of, all these great spots in downtown are just disappearing.
It's beautiful what you just said, new life. Yeah. See, a lot of people are trying to do old things. They keep saying normalcy, go back. Here's the thing, what do you want to go back to? Why not look at this opportunity? What's the new, right? What's the pollination that could come out of this? And you can't put old wine or new wine in an old skin. That's a biblical thing because it'll burst.
It's also a very practical thing.
It's a practical
Most
thing.
winemakers would say,
yeah,
no, that
yeah,
does
don't
not
do
work
it.
well.
But and I love what you just said, man. That's a big takeaway right there. New. Yeah. And you know what I mean? And you're standing there, and there's a lot of people going, "Is he crazy?"
Probably.
Just a little bit.
Hashtag definitely gonna take off.
That's crazy.
Hashtag crazy crowd.
With a K. With a K.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. There's so many great new things coming to downtown. Obviously, we're aiming to open hopefully beginning of April. You got Paloma and Juniper and the press room, and I think 301's doing a new concept. That whole area is going to house like 7 new restaurants and bars, and we're just stoked to be, one of the new things in Greenville.
So what
some
was
positive news?
What was the heartbeat in 2018 and 2019, even in 2020, that kind of helped lead you toward here? Because, dude, that's a storm, man. What you went through in that time, it could derail so many people. And here you are coming out on the other side, because I know the clothing company came about through that time, which was very thought out, by the way, how the design came and everything. But I'm interested, what was the heartbeat, the daily grind and activities that kept you pushing to this moment? Because I'd love to kind of paint that picture for folks, because a lot of times when we watch these movies, you all know the montage I'm about to talk about. It's like, the hero has that battle and they need to change, and then you have about a minute and a half of all these clips, so yada, yada, and then they're transformed. Right. Take us to that minute and a half montage of Jeremy going through that process before getting to Society on the Wall, and I guess bring the viewers into that grind, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surrounded by truly the best of the best friends. Our gang's dubbed Bangarang. We ride mopeds and launch them off hills in the woods. That's a true story. But no,
Isn't Bangarang from Hook too?
Yeah, it's the war cry of the Lost Boys. I'm glad you got that.
If you haven't watched Hook yet, get yourself there.
Rufio!
I heard Bangarang and I was like, oh,
I got
Right in
excited.
the
Robin Williams.
Yeah, man. No, dude, they were just super supportive of everything. And then,
Hold on.
He's back.
that's probably some of the Bangarang down there. Yeah, no, just getting into, I've always been an art kid in general. Grew up playing in bands with my brother. I've almost had multiple major record deals as a kid, played the Warped Tour. I've worked for 2 record producers down in Atlanta forever, got a #1 MTV video, name of movie credits. I've always been driven artistically, and kind of dipped into the graphic design realm with White Rabbit. Self-taught entirely on graphic design. Also, all the logo and work for Society. I think if you see as we release the characters, I think they're pretty much all out. But there's a nice nod at White Rabbit in terms of stylistically, a lot of the energy behind the art. But when I was running Gringos, we used to do these big community events. I'm sure you remember a bunch of them, Running the Bulls being one of them. and they were always tied to different charities, and that was just always fun. And the result, the fruit of your labors and efforts, I guess, of putting forth those events, and then watching how we benefited, whether it was Project Host or Red Shoe Society or whatever it was, Greenville Humane. That was always fun, and that's something that I wanted to continue after I left Gringos. Not only were we doing like what I hope was cool shirts and hats and hoodies, but have an impact in the community. And we would do these events. Of course, COVID kind of shut that down a little bit in 2020, but in 2.5 years now, I guess, of having White Rabbit, I'm super stoked to say we've raised $18,000 for different nonprofits and charities in the 2 years, 800 pounds of food for Harvest Hope, and we very much want to continue that work here. But I think having that positive impact was just, that's kind of the driving force of keeping me going too. It's like, cool, you're here, you're making a difference, you're doing something, and that's valuable. And, to share that with other people, and hopefully someone else, I guess the coolest part of this whole process when someone's like, man, I love you, you deserve this is great. How did you do this? It's like just getting up every day and doing it. And it's cool to see people not even just acknowledge it, but be inspired by that they want to go do it. And, I had this girl, she's taking over social media marketing down at Mirasaki. And she's like, can I sit on the phone with you for just 15 minutes and pick your brain? I was like, yeah, I guess. It might not work for you, but I'd love to have a conversation with you and, give you pointers for things that worked for me. And, even if they don't work for you, maybe they inspire you to find a different path that works for you. It's cool to have that, I guess, influence, and positivity. And that, in turn, I guess, feeds my positivity of, keep going, keep doing shit,
Well, and Ted, your question, get in the mindset of the grind, right? So what I hear as part of it was you woke up every day to do what you knew you needed to do, but most people, when they say they're hustling or they're grinding or whatever, it's so selfish. And they'll tell themselves, oh, when I get to X, right? When I get to this part, then
I'll include you.
Then I'll do something good, right?
I'll do something
But
nice.
then there's a whole new set of problems. And no. When we get to 2 locations, right? I love that part of who you are, and I'm not gonna. Hustle, grind. If that makes you feel good. I think part of you saying, "Hey, I'm gonna wake up every day and live into who I am, live into honoring and respecting my ancestors, and what the privilege that they allowed me now to have." Your mind immediately went to, "But how can I give back?" 50 cents off a shirt, $1. But you raised, through your efforts and through an amazing team, $18,000 for charity. Yeah. So I think part of that, what we don't see in those movies is all those movies are typically about how cool the superhero became or the businessman or whatever, right? But what I appreciate about this is when you were trying to build yourself up, your eyes were still out on others. And I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, man, I think it would be unfair to not take that approach because, I only am sitting in this room talking to you guys right now, in a place I can call, my own house, because of how much community's given back to me and been supportive to me and encouraging, and truly pushing me over the past few years of encouraging me and rooting for me. That goes a long way, whether you know it or not, having people either publicly or silently cheering you on, is pretty rad,
And I think it's Mother Teresa or Gandhi, either one. It's good. Either one, good one to quote.
Yeah.
But the quote is, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And, I think that's what has been part of your story that really resonates with me.
What would you tell somebody that is going through their own struggles, their own dark days? Because what I'm writing down here and piggybacking off of Jonathan's reflection of what you've been saying, I get the sense of a lot of community and a lot of close relationships. You've referenced your bangarang friends. You referenced the examples that were put in front of you and the community that's poured into you. And it's great that was in tune for you throughout. If somebody has that disconnect, they don't have that relationship set up with a close friend, or maybe they don't have that pouring in from the community that they hope, what would you tell them in their dark days right now that hopefully can maybe help them kind of see that brighter future and wake up tomorrow and start getting after it?
Honestly, man, just keep going. You're never going to see the results if you just sit back and wish for them. You have to actively get up and do it. And even if that sucks, believe me, I would bartend and then leave and come build this bar, go to sleep for 3 hours, wake up, and come right back and do it all over again. You know, even if it's not comfortable, you got to keep doing it. You know, Charles would say the same thing getting into fitness. I'm sure the first few times you go work out, it absolutely sucks until you get into routine of, you know, oh, this is cool. I feel better. I feel, you know, more energetic. You know, there's no true answer to solving someone's feelings. You just got to keep at it until you find something that gives you some kind of life and spark and gets you off, so to speak, of makes you happy. And, you know, that might be experimenting with 1,000, gardening, working on cars, opening a bar, whatever it is. Like, you just got to keep going and keep doing it. It's not, life's never going to sort itself out just for you from you sitting on a couch and complaining about it. You got a choice to get up and go change what you can change. And if you can't change something, figure out how to maybe change the variable in that, you know, you turn it a different direction. Maybe it's not a complete 180 of whatever, but you can leverage it to find the right thing for you. I mean, I guess there's no right answer, I feel like, to, you know, I'm thankful and blessed to have an awesome friend group, and it's unfortunate when people have that lack or that void. But I feel like we live in such a great town of Greenville anyways, that just going out and trying to connect with people on some level.
I think the connection's out there with the internet, and I mean, you can find a lot of dark places in the internet. You can find a lot of bright places in the internet. I think the same tools that we have for bad are also the same tools that we can use for good. The number one consumer of explosives is the U.S. Army. They use it to destroy. Number two is Disney World. They use it to shoot off fireworks and create happiness, right?
Yeah.
And it's the product is the same. You're buying explosives, but you're using it for two different outcomes. So the substance isn't the decider of the outcome. You are the catalyst that chooses what happens with that substance. I didn't take chemistry. That's as far as I'm going to go with that. But
I can tell you if it's going to rain or not, but I'm not going to tell you how things blow.
Exactly. In hindsight, with where we are now, society, and kind of the path you're pushing towards now, what was the gift 2017 and 2018 gave you?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
Real good question.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, the initial response would be wanting to be bitter and, you know, angry of two important, you know, figures in life being suddenly just stripped away. I'd say just perspective on finding what's more important and what am I putting efforts in. Is going out and partying meaningful? Probably not. Being more appreciative of moments and being more diligent about what I'm focusing my time on, I guess. You know, that's kind of 2017, running around having fun. I still run around and have fun, that's important, but focusing those efforts and time on more important things, I guess, than just riding along, you know?
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, man. Jeremy, thank you.
You guys.
Tim, Jonathan, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, man. I mean, this is just a nod to Marvel, you know, and like comics or even superheroes talking about that. You know, we're all super in a sense, you know, and you know, Batman has to put all that clothing on to be super. You know, Superman, he's too busy covering his up, so people don't know that he's super. Sometimes that's what we're like in our world. We're more like Superman. So we go through this period where we're trying to put things on to seem important. Superman is very important and very needed, but he has to disguise it all the time. But all along, he's Superman. Right. He's always Superman. You know, any of the other ones, like Hulk is fighting all the time, not getting too big. Yeah. You know what I mean? And he has to come back down, but it's in him. You see what I'm saying? And what I love is that you've always had your Superman. You've always had Superman, and you've gone through your periods of putting on your Clark Kent and then coming back out. But I feel like right now you're just in that stride and you say, this is me. Yeah. This is me, and I'm going to work with my superpowers. And yes, there is kryptonite and things that are still going to affect me, but I'm still going to show up. That's my...
Bangarang's back.
Yeah, Bangarang.
Bangarang.
Anyways, that's why I like, because I try to tell people, what's your superpowers? You got them. We all have them, you know? But I just dig it that you're not in disguise, man. You're being you.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm excited to get everyone in here and feed them some sandwiches and ramen and alcohol.
The blend of sandwiches and ramen.
Ramen and alcohol.
Well, it's like you drive by and it's like we do, pizza, hibachi, and chicken wings.
Chicken
like,
wings.
How in the world? For me, I mentioned to you right before we started going podcast. Like I walked in, and within really moments, I was like, I feel like a connection here. Like for me, like this is like a space for me. That's might freak some of you out, but if you know me, that doesn't freak you out. Like I just feel a vibe. But I think, what I take away from this conversation, and I think one of the things we talk about a lot, like I quote Tim a ton, we quoted Charles at least 3 times today, and you talk about your dad and your grandma. I think, guys, if you're watching this right now, what we're taking away from this is, we're not self-made. No. Right? We're just not. And that saying you're self-made is a lie and is complete BS. And if you have that on some Instagram profile, like you made yourself, self-made this, delete it. And if you keep it, I have no credibility for you. And I just want to appreciate and say how much I appreciate your humility. You talked more about your friends and the people you were bringing on, and you dropped names of people. And yes, you said this is your house, but you honored your grandma, you honored your dad, you honored your brother who took his life, and you honored these people who are with you. And guys, I think that's so important. You're not self-made. You're not self-made. You stand on shoulders, you borrow wisdom, you get insight, you get finances. And why would you want it any other way?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want that team of people? Why wouldn't you want your own Bangarang? Yeah. So I just want to encourage our guys, hey, you're not self-made. Honor the team you're around. And I just want to tell you, I'm really grateful for how you honored both your ancestors, both your friends, and both your team.
Thanks, man. I guess that really makes it a great name for society, right?
Yeah, right.
That's what we're all make up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade the team for the world for sure.
Yeah.
Makes life easier.
You're a stud, man. I appreciate you. Tim, Jonathan, appreciate you guys as well for being with us. And I'm excited to spend some time making memories here, man.
Me too, dude.
Definitely.
Thank you guys. Thanks
Yes,
for coming
sir.
in and doing the show here.
Absolutely. And to you guys watching, guys and girls, of course, on YouTube, we appreciate you, and just know that, hey, number one, whatever track you're on, wherever you're going, you are the driver. The thing I loved so much about Jeremy was the responsibility, the personal responsibility of thinking, okay, what can I control, what can I change, and what can I do? And then doing something about it. And then when you're squeezed, what comes out? You have superpowers within you, as Tim just said. You have that superpower. Sometimes it takes some experimentation to find out what that superpower is. Don't be afraid of trying through new things. Like Jeremy said, you got to get out there, try things, and see what works. Keep pushing into that discomfort, and you have to do this every day. He said, I did this every day. You wake up, and sometimes it's not going to be fun. Most of the time, I'm not even gonna lie, most of the time it's not gonna be fun. But I wrote down here, because when he was saying, hey, just like Charles would say, when you start working out, it sucks at first. You're under the pressure until you get progress. Take on that pressure until the progress comes.
You're under pressure till you make progress?
You're under the pressure until you make progress.
Go, Bishop. I'm gonna quote you now.
Go ahead.
Charles is getting credit. He ain't even on the. He's not even on it.
But that quote right there.
That's right there.
Right there.
So
Change
ready.
that one.
So ready.
Head fan, everybody.
Find what gives you life, and also thank you for the perspective. I wrote thank you for the perspective. When I asked what that gift was, a lot of times some of our darkest days is what gives us perspective. sometimes the things we go through helps recalibrate life for us, and that in itself could be the gift for us moving forward. We're not self-made, and the blessings we get, I wanted to talk about the people that bless us. Most of the time, we don't get to bless them back. Jeremy talked about his grandmother, his father, the examples that they left for him. And what he's doing now is he's blessing his community with the impact that they've given him. So a lot of our instincts is to bless the people that have blessed us or give back to the people who've given us. But the reality is our job is to give forward and give to the next one. And I hope you learn from that. I hope you can take the reins of your life, take the wheel of your life, take control, and bring that bad boy in the direction you want it to go. And go out there and be a modern man.